Guys, here's a quick look at the optional upgraded heads for the Nano CPX. So I have here's the combo with the swash plate, the main grips, the hub, and I also got the swash leveler, which will come in handy when I'm installing the new RKH swash plate. So first off, let's open up the swash leveler and show you guys how it looks. It's very simple. It works just like the bigger swash levelers as you can find for the bigger helicopters like the T-Rex, the Logos, the Synergies, you know, all the swash leveler pretty much functions the same, which I'm going to show you guys right here. So pretty much when you have the head off, you leave the swash plate in the main shaft and you pop on the leveler over it and you just pretty much look to see which side has the gap and you adjust your ball links. And I'm going to show you guys later in the video after I install the swash, but give you guys a closer look at the swash leveler. You can see, very cool. Very nice finish to it, very smooth. The machining is just really good. If you look here, you don't really see that much machining marks, which is very nice, because what I noticed with some of the other upgrades, you can still see some of the machining marks, which kind of makes the upgraded bling look kind of cheap, you know, with all that machining scars and marks on there. But here you go. Let me open up the main hub. This would be a very nice upgrade if you crash a lot, you know, with the stock plastic. Breaks a lot if you break this. Well, actually, this one I wouldn't say it's going to be very durable, because it is aluminum and the Nano is going to be so light where I don't think it's going to be affected too much. But here's the manual. So pretty much all you get is the hub. So you would still have to keep your dampeners, your feathering shaft. So make sure you guys do not throw those away. Quick look at the manual. Bam, here we go. There's only one front side, so it tells you how to mount it. You you pop it on. Sorry guys, you got 2 screws on each side, and then you just got to keep on. You just got to keep all of the original, you know, mounts for the spindle, the brass washer, and the rubber dampener on there. So here we go. Let me put this aside. Open up the hub. Show you guys how this one looks. So here you go. Very nice work of art. It has the RKH. Let's see, let me focus for you guys. Got the RKH name on there in the front. So that looks very cool. Got 2 screws to mount down to the carbon fiber main shaft. Alright. Let's move on to the main grips. This was one of the things that I was looking forward to the most, was the main grips. You can see here we got the main grip set. This is the silver color. Take it out of the Ziploc bag. Alright, so here we go. Let's see what's with the main grips. So, main grips. Very nice. So if you're looking at it, the top is actually a solid piece of aluminum that's been cut. Focus for you guys. Which has RKH on there again, the name RKH from Rack-On Heli. And the bottom, to keep the weight down, you can see how it's been milled a little bit on the center, which gives it that lighter weight. So it's very nice. Bearings come pre-installed. The ball links, or the ball's already on there, so you just gotta pop the links on when you install these. So very cool. Give us a look at the other one. Here we go. Nice. Love the way the silver looks, and I love the bling. Now, if you guys are crashing a lot and a lot of times, I would not recommend you guys to get these upgrades just yet, because these are aluminum, 60-65. So if you do crash, a lot of times crash, you know, just right. Sometimes these parts will bend, and just like the stock parts will break, but they're a little bit cheaper than getting aluminum, you know, upgrades for it. But if you guys like bling like I do, you know, hey, I'm not stopping you guys from getting bling, because these blings sure look nice. So here is the swash plate. Very nice. This is the advanced swash plate you can see here from RKH, silver color. So here we go. Alright, everything fits in this bag just snug, so it's going to be a little tough to get out sometimes. So here we go. We got the manual and some screws. You get 2 little screws, I guess, for the anti-rotation bracket. And just like the frame, it also comes with a carbon fiber anti-rotation bracket and the plastic bracket. And I believe this is a screwdriver or something. I'm not really sure what this thing is, but gotta read the manual, which will explain. Here we go. And here is the swash plate. Look how nice the swash plate looks. Very beefy. If you look at it here, you can see the bottom. It's been milled, and there's a little ridge. Not sure if you guys can see it because it is silver. It might be hard to get on the camera, but there's a ridge on the bottom which will help that strength. So when you crash a lot, I noticed on the stock swash plate when you crash, these arms will bend and eventually break off. But with the ridge on the bottom of these aluminum upgrades, it's going to be a lot stronger because, like, you know, when you're building a real construction building, like one of those high rises, you have the I-beams, which adds that lateral strength to it. So it's very nice. You can see in the rear, get the anti-rotation guide or pin right here for the guide. Mount bearings feel nice, not gritty at all. It's a little tight, but that's because they're oiled and greased from the factory, so it will take a little bit of break-in to get these bearings to be free. Let's check the slop to see if there's any slop on here. Oh, look at this. No slop at all. I cannot even wiggle the upper and the lower half, so that's very nice. Compared to my micro heli swash that I have here, this swash plate had tons of slop. You can see I can wiggle it right now, which is just horrible. And I had quite a few flights on there, but this swash plate just had slop from the start, while the RKH has no slop whatsoever. Here's how it looks and on the main shaft, very smooth. The ball is just the perfect diameter where it's not too tight and not too loose on there, so it's very cool. Show you guys how it looks. Alright, here's the bottom. You can see the bottom of the bearing. Very cool. So let me go ahead and install it and show you guys how all the parts look once they're installed in the head. Alright, so the first part that you want to install first is the swash plate. So after you remove the head from the stock main shaft, just what I could do is just clean it up. You know, since you're already here, take some paper and just clean up the main shaft, get all that, you know, dry oil, dry grease, all that dirt that's been sticking to the carbon fiber main shaft, and just give it a nice cleaning. Here we go. So now you slide the main or swash plate onto the main shaft. Very cool. You can see how it looks here. Make sure you can rotate the ball a little bit. Even though it is new, it will be a little bit tight at first because the ball is on the piece of plastic for the guide right here, which does take a little bit of break-in time. So just give a nice little wiggle. Make sure it's not too tight, because if it's too tight, most likely your servos will kind of strain out when you're flying it. So just work it in by hand for a little bit. And after a few seconds or a few minutes, depending on how the fitting is, just give it a nice little wiggle and just break it in slowly. And I can feel it already. It's starting to break in. If you guys are still having a hard time, what you could do is add a little bit of drop of light oil like Tri-Flow or bearing oil, and just work it in a little bit, and that should, you know, make everything work all nice and freely and smooth. So here we go. So next up, you guys could install the swash now, not the swash pins or the ball links from the swash plate to the main grips. You can either do it now or you can do it later when you're installing it. And what I would recommend you guys to do is, since you're installing all of these new aftermarket upgrades, go ahead and just use new ball links, because the old ones, depending on how much you fly, could be loose or sloppy from the start. So it's always better to use new parts when you're installing anything new. So let me go ahead and install the hub and show you guys how that one looks. So here we go. The main hub is installed in the main shaft. Now a tip for you guys is, when you're installing the main hub, make sure that you have these screws on the notch of the main shaft, because if not, you can either slide it down too much and it won't be a good fit, and the geometry of the ball links will be off and everything, so when you're mounting it. So make sure you give a nice little tighten down the screws just a tad bit so you can feel the notch, rotate it, and then tighten it slowly. Make sure you go back and forth on each side, so that way everything is nice and straight on the notch itself. Tighten down. And as always, use Loctite on the screws that goes from the screw to the main hub, so that way it doesn't back off from vibration. And if these screws do back off because you forget to use Loctite, guess what's going to happen? Your head's going to come popping off, and you're going to pretty have one of those little flying, spinning things in the air. So, yep, remember to use Loctite, guys. So, let's go ahead and install the grips. So, a tip when you're installing the main grips is, when you're putting everything back together, make sure that you have these spacers right here. Be very careful and pay attention to the two sides. One side's going to be smooth and the other side will have a step to it. and you will want the other side of the step to be facing outside towards the bearing of the main grip. So here we go. And also the logo of the main grips will be on the top, and that way it will give you leading edge of the ball link, so when spinning the leading edge is first. Just make sure you don't have it reversed the other way, or else you will have the wrong pitch. So now install it, and you would need your spindle or feathering shaft tool for this process right here. So make sure you get it down, tighten down some more. Just make sure when you tighten these down that you don't put them too tight, or else that'll be a very bad thing and the main grips won't move freely. Alright, and I kind of stripped one of my spindle tool in the past when I was trying to remove something because I used too much Loctite. So if I were you guys, just instead of using Loctite on the spindle or feathering shaft, use some white Elmer's glue. That would be a little bit easier to remove. Here we go. So now that it's on, you remove your shaft. Oh, it's kind of loose because my tool is messed up once again. So this is where pliers come in handy. Give it a nice little squeeze. Or you can always buy new tools if you ever, round off the inside of these a little bit. So here we go. Let me try that again. There we go. Tighten these down. Alright, so now that since that is installed, what you want to do is check your grips. Make sure they're not too tight. So pretty much you want these balls right here to just fall back when you move it. If it doesn't, it's too tight. So you want it just right, and also you want it to the point where it's not going to be too loose where you can pull these grips apart. And check everything, make sure everything fits nice and snug. So here we go. Everything looks correct on here, so time to install these new links right here. So you gotta force them through. Alright, so put on the main grips first. Pop them on, make sure they're on. Now what you guys could do too is check these ball links first. So pop them on here. So right here you can see they're a little tight, which is good, so because when they're tighter that means no slop. So what you got to do is work these ball links in before you install it. So work it in, just work it around a few times and it should loosen in a little bit. Same thing, what you could do too now is pop it off and check the bottom swash over here. So let me get this to a nice location where I can pop the bottom section of this link on, making sure that it's not tight either. Yes, it is tight. So what you want to do is just work it around a few times and work this link in. Here we go, just do this. Adding a little bit of lube will help too. But it's always better to not use any grease or oil, because when you do that, it just attracts a lot of dirt. So just pop it on and off a few times and it should break in after a few minutes. There we go, much better. Just gotta pop it on and off a few times. So now, we go over here, pop on the link. Make sure when you're putting these on that they're facing the correct way. You want the bigger diameter of the opening to be facing inside the ball link right here, and the smaller to be facing outside. So forcing them in. Here we go. Let's do the top link first. Here we go. If you got very small fingers, very large fingers, guys, good luck. Alright. Here we go, here we go. Bam, now they're on. Let's do the bottom piece. Make sure you pay attention to the diameter of the opening. Make sure that you have the right side, because if you have the side that's too small, it's going to be too hard to get that link in, and you might end up just breaking the link. Alright, now same thing with the other side. So since I didn't check the tightness, you just want to pop it off, take your fingers and just rub it off a little bit. And now check the holes. Make sure it's not tight, because when these links are too tight, it's going to bind up and it's not going to be very, very free, and it's going to cause your Nano to fly all over the place. So once you get this in, I'm going to show you guys how this new upgraded head looks onto the main frame itself. Alright, so the head is assembled onto my RKH advanced mainframe. So if you're using the stock swash plate, there's two ways to mount, or if you're using the stock, the stock nano airframe, the plastic airframe, and you have two choices. You can have the anti-rotation bracket on the side or in the rear. I myself like the rear because the rear just looks a little bit better, and it also feels slightly better in my opinion when I'm flying it. So here we go. It shows you how to mount it. You can see two screws. So this little tool here, or this little metal thing here, is actually a drill bit. You can see when you remove off the covering, there's a drill bit right here. So when you mount the swash plate, so when you mount the anti-rotation bracket to the stock frame in the rear, it shows you right here. Drill two holes and you screw on these two screws right here. That's included in the bag. So if you guys don't want to go that route, just use you can go side and use a pin right here, and you can use the side mount depending on what you guys want to do. So you can see here, swash plate comes already assembled, so you would not have to worry about this part unless you want to replace a bearing or any parts on this side right here. But you can see here, so frame looks very nice, the head looks very nice. Now one thing I forgot to do in this video was, before you mount the head, you want to mount the swash plate onto the main shaft itself, and you pop on the swash leveler and you turn your radio. Make sure all of the swashes, that way you make sure that all of these links are perfect and the swash is nice and level, because if the swash is kind of tilted too much to the front, too much to the back, or too much to the side, it's going to cause your flying to be very, very poor when you're trying to fly your Nano. So that's why the swash leveler comes in handy. So you guys can use it if you guys want, but it's a very handy tool and it's very easy to use than eyeballing the swash plate and try to see which one's front when you can just pop this on. So I hope you guys enjoyed this part of the kind of quick, quick look, tips, and slightly built. And stay tuned guys for the next video, which should be the flying part, and it'll be ready to go by then. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching guys.